Roosevelt, do solemnly swear.
I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution.
The Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
Today is January 13th, and today is history in the making. We are living through what I believe will be looked back upon as one of the most important times in not only United States history, but one of the most important times in world history. My name is Mark David Smith, and you're watching Contemplating the Constitution on the Lamb Video Network. Now, for our Constitution in the news, when the Constitution of the United States shows up in the news, every once in a while I get an email from my North Carolina Congressman David Rouser on last week's Our Constitution in the News. I use this email as the base outline for my article, and this week I've chosen to do the same, basically to use his email as the base outline, and I'll insert my comments as I go along. His latest email is titled The Tragedies of January 6th by Congressman David Rouser, and it's published January 7th, 2021. My North Carolina Congressman David Rouser writes, and I quote, "I hear from so many who say, I don't know who or what to trust anymore. Trust is foundational for any civilized society and for a representative democracy in particular. When people lose trust in our institutions of government, everything begins to break down. Then mob rule and chaos fill the vacuum. The rule of law is only as good as our character and our ability as a society to enforce it. That's the reason why we have a government in the first place, to secure and protect us from mob rule. It's also why confidence in our elections is so critically important. It's impossible to trust in government institutions if you don't believe they are legitimate and serving the people. What we all witnessed this past week on January 6th in our nation's capital was appalling and should be condemned. Congressman David Rouser continues, based on some of the interviews I saw of those protesting peacefully, many have a deep-seated distrust in our government institutions. This by no means excuses the thuggery and violence of those who participated in the assault on the Capitol. They should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Distrust is why 39% of this country believe the election was rigged, according to a recent Reuters poll, including 17% of Democrats. Some say that is because President Trump has said it was rigged. I have no doubt that there are those who think that because he has said it, because Trump said it, but there are also many smart, independent-minded voters who have instinctively come to that conclusion on their own. Moi is one. This brings me to the formal certification of the electoral votes of each state by Congress. The debate, January 6th of last week, a week from today, was over a constitutional question. A key reason why 39% of the country believe the election was rigged is this. The changes made by states to their election laws in the last few weeks and days leading up to the election day were made by individuals and third parties, not by state legislatures, as the Constitution requires. And many of those changes made fraud that much easier. For those of you who missed last week's article, let me read the part of the Constitution David Rouser is talking about. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution says, and I quote, "Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislator thereof may direct." Rouser's point here is that the state legislator and the state legislature alone can change anything having to do with the election. An individual cannot change the time and place of how it's done. The North Carolina congressman goes on to say, human nature is sinful. So it is inherent that every election has some fraud. It's just a question of how much. Those of us who objected to the certification of electors of certain states and then voted in favor of those objections believe those specific slates of electors are invalid. Why? Because those elections were not conducted based on laws passed by the state legislature and therefore are unconstitutional. In fact, Pennsylvania's state house and Senate each sent Congress a letter requesting we delay certification of their state of electors. Due to irregularities, their hearings have brought to light as a result of such changes. Those on the other side of this argument read the Constitution to say that Congress has no role in evaluating states of electors unless a state submits more than one slate from which to choose. Both arguments are wrong. However, I find it unlikely our Constitution requires each I read that wrong. Both arguments are strong, not wrong. I apologize for that. However, I find it unlikely our Constitution requires each legislative body to officially certify slates of electors. If our founders had intended for this to be a ministerial or clerical function, had that been the case, the Speaker of House or some other governmental office would have been designated. This document identifies the specific sections of the Constitution as well as Supreme Court rulings that support this view. The objections made on January 6th were on solid constitutional grounds and deserve to be known and understood. Unfortunately, the tragic events of that day obscured this constitutional point, so central to election integrity. This has been from an email sent to me by North Carolina Congressman David Rouser. I saw the whole speech of my President Trump spoke on January 6th, and it was good, but he did not incite anybody to riot or to insurrection or anything of that sort. The actual speech was good. It was lengthy. I've been told several things about it, that they actually even made it go long for specific reasons or whatever. And yes, he did say, now it's time to go march down the streets and go to Congress, but he never incited anybody to violence or anything like that. As a personal commentary, I believe that there's a couple of things that I think should have been foreseen. And first of all, I have trouble believing, let's put it that way. I have trouble believing that with all President Trump's advisors and people that are so smart in putting all of this together and figuring all this out, that they couldn't have foreseen that this would happen. I mean, not that the Trump supporters would become violent. I mean, obviously, we haven't in the past. Only Democrats have really been violent in the past. Just take a look at 4 years ago. Why couldn't they have foreseen that there would be people like the ones that did the violence would do it, and have Trump say from the stage, please don't do this. As a matter of fact, if there's a possibility of that, then disperse the crowd and call it a victory and call it a great speech and disperse the crowd and everybody go home and not have that happen. Why couldn't they have foreseen that possibly could have happened? There's just so many things there. Another thing is that he spent 20 minutes or more listing off each individual thing that was wrong with the election, all the different things that had happened. Example, the only thing that usually comes to my head, even though it was 20 minutes worth of different things, that like 139% of the registered voters in Detroit voted. 139%. It would have been great at 100%, but you had 39% of all the voters that weren't even registered to vote. So right away, that's wrong. And it just adds up and adds up. To me, why wouldn't his advisors, why wouldn't his speechwriters add to that to have Trump tell everybody that, I understand this is wrong, but please don't let this incite you to violence. Just understand what it is. And I don't know. These thoughts have gone through my head. It's like Trump is smart. His advisors are smart. I just think they could have handled it differently as far as his speech was concerned. And then if people broke into Congress and broke windows and things like that, then you have Trump publicly saying not to do that. So the ones that did it, it's on them, not on Trump. I'm just so surprised that they didn't head this off before it actually happened. So there you go. There are multiple articles about this subject, and I'm sure it will go on and on. But for now, I'm done with this particular subject until the next one frustrates me, and then I'll probably bring the next one.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Eleanor Roosevelt, do solemnly swear.
I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States. So help me God.